James Cameron's Avatar: The Way of Water was released in theaters on December 16, 2022, 13 years after the first film. Does the sequel keep the series alive after all this time? Welcome to the Review Desk. I'm Desmond Carrick, and today I'll be reviewing Avatar: The Way of Water. I'll be honest, I was skeptical on whether or not this film would succeed, both financially and critically, because I wasn't sure there'd still be sufficient interest in the franchise after 13 years. Add to that the fact the disparaging comments Cameron has been making about popular superhero movies, and you think audiences might even attempt to boycott it. My mind immediately changed, however, when the first teaser was released. It said so much by saying so little. Were it any other director, the studio would have demanded a loud, bombastic trailer featuring the best scenes from the film, including spoilers. One of the best examples is a trailer for Terminator Genisys, which not only featured pretty much every action scene, but also the biggest spoiler in the film. But this is James Cameron, and you work on his terms. The teaser is calm, sparse on dialogue, and exhibits the amazing visuals of the film without ruining too much. It's a sign of confidence. The film is saying it doesn't need to use gimmicks for you to go see it. You'll go see it because it's Avatar. The franchise may have been dormant for 13 years, but in 1 minute and 38 seconds, the teaser reignited interest on a global scale. The good. I'm going to start with the obvious. I have been alive for 39 years and a fan of movies for the majority of that time. And in terms of visuals, The Way of Water is the most beautiful film I've ever seen. From the very first second when the camera zooms in on a foggy forest, it's apparent. The Avatar films are still the pinnacle of special effects in their contemporary age. The frame rate is not the traditional 24 frames per second as we're used to, but 48. It makes the film not only look hyper-realistic, but also move that way. This isn't the first time a higher frame rate has been used. In 2012, The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey became the first film to do so. Director Peter Jackson stated that the films converted to 3D can sometimes have a stuttered look and that using a higher frame rate would make scenes look smoother. This became one of the film's major points of criticism, however, not only because most viewers felt it was a mistake that actually made the special effects look even less convincing, but made the film somewhat uncomfortable to watch. This is absolutely not the case with Way of Water. Utilizing 48 frames per second was a brilliant decision and makes the already beautiful film feel even that more immersive. Character development. There's subtle emotional growth for Jake, as he has to be not only a leader now, but also a father, yet still clings to some of his more human traits, such as raiding transports for human weapons instead of relying on traditional Na'vi arms, whereas Neteyam opts for the bow and arrow. This could be seen as a tactically wise decision, since human weapons carry more ammo, have greater range, and can ultimately cause more damage to enemy targets. An excuse that Jake undoubtedly uses to keep holding on to an all-too-human way of thinking. The Marine in him also treats his family more as a squad. This rolls over to his children, especially his teenage sons who, despite their age and temperaments, do not easily talk back to their father or engage him in debate, rather responding to his commands with a concise, "Yes, sir." It isn't all drawbacks, however. His versatility and determination as a Marine comes in handy when he has to learn the ways of the Metkayina. It would be easy to say he has a hard time letting go of being human, but being a Na'vi living on Pandora doesn't mean he has to completely abandon who he once was. It's like immigrating to another country. Integration is necessary, but you should never completely forget where you come from. Another highly interesting character in that respect is Na'vi Quaritch and his inner conflict. He seems to dance the line of being Quaritch and accepting that he's an entirely different person, an entirely different species in fact. When he crushes Quaritch's skull, it feels like an attempt to convince the others on his team, and himself, that he's his own man. And yet, when he sees his progenitor's body impaled by Na'vi arrows, he instantly develops a phobia to them, a recurring theme throughout the film. Perhaps being faced with his own mortality gave him some more perspective. While he can at times be as ruthless as his human counterpart, concocting a plan to kill off Tulkun and even other Na'vi to flush out the Sullies, I found him to have more tender moments. His facial expressions sometimes convey bewilderment. He's not always barking orders or brandishing his bravado, and he's even tolerant of Spider's antics. Speaking of which, I don't know if human Quaritch would have abandoned his mission to save Spider's life. It's a very interesting development of this character indeed. Loak, Jake and Neytiri's second son, is eventually rescued by Payakan the Tulkun, a giant species of whale-like creatures on Pandora, and they quickly form a bond. This is another example of great character development. In the beginning of the film, Loak has been shown to be impulsive and perpetually seeking adventure and glory in battle, to the point that he doesn't always realize the danger he's putting himself in, or others. As his new relationship with Payakan is explored, Loak becomes more tempered in his actions, but it also highlights that the fire within him is a deeply rooted part of who he is. He still seeks a fight, only now it's a fight for a worthy cause. Seeing him and Payakan together also evokes childhood memories, when many of us dreamed about exploring with our favorite animal. I've loved orcas since I was a young child, so you can imagine that this relationship spoke to me on a personal level. Kiri is a daughter/clone of Dr. Grace Augustine from the first film, and on her own she represents many ideas that can be explored. The film doesn't fully explain the details of her conception and her strong connection to Eywa, but that's a good thing. She's unsure of who she is or why her origins make her so different from everyone else, and that's a journey that can't be wrapped up in a single film, even a 3-hour one. I look forward to seeing where the mythology takes her. Her connection to Eywa is shown in both explicit and subtle detail. Explicitly, she says she can hear Eywa speak to her. Many different animals flock to her and she seems to have a limited degree of control over them. But there are also subtle moments like when both Loak and Neteyam struggle to remain underwater and have to surface for air. Kiri, on the other hand, spends a large amount of time submerged, communing with the life around her and seemingly unbothered by the need to breathe. To breathe from the air, anyway. There's also more subtle exploration of characters. Neteyam, the oldest son, is often the voice of reason when his brother is being reckless. Being an older sibling myself, who was often tasked with watching over my younger brother, and berated when he got into trouble on my watch, but also taking the heat for his mistakes because I felt sorry for him, the movie didn't need to say too much when it came to his character, as his actions themselves reflected not only who he is, but the responsibility he has to bear. Much effort has been put not only into the visuals, but the character designs. The Metkayina tribe aren't just similar-looking Na'vi who happen to live by the reefs of Pandora. It's clear there are different subspecies. Their tails are different, built like rudders for swimming, making them much faster underwater. Their forearms are larger and have what look like sturdy fins. Their skin tone is different, closer to the color of the coral waters. I imagine that because they have larger predators to deal with than the forest Na'vi, this serves as a sort of camouflage. They also have more pronounced eyes and differently positioned ears. Their design somewhat reminded me of the pearl species from the film Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, especially since this species made their home in a similar coastal tropical area. That's in no way an accusation of Avatar ripping off their design, just some interesting similarities. I've read online that most critics found Tonowari, chief of the Metkayina, and his wife Ronal, redundant because they reflect Jake and Neytiri respectively in personality and leadership roles. I have to disagree. Tonowari is a more seasoned leader than Jake. He's fair yet stern when necessary. Ronal has a sharp edge to her, matching Neytirian fierceness, but she also has a more black and white outlook when it comes to the outsiders. She may seem rude to the Sullies, but only because she is well aware of what dangers accepting them into their village can bring with it. When Tonowari unsuccessfully suggests that because of her pregnancy she's in no condition to join the battle, she also has a pretty hilarious response. I had to go back to watch scenes from the first film where Jake seeks the aid of other tribes for the final battle, since I remembered one particular tribe being near the sea. I wanted to know if this was the same reef tribe, but this doesn't seem to be the case. That particular tribe, the Tairangi clan, had their settlement on a cliff by the sea rather than near a coral reef. The Metkayina seem to be heavily inspired by Maori culture, as evidenced by the tattoos, battle posturing, and the relationship with the Tulkun whales, one of the many new species introduced. The design of the tulkun, in both terms of appearance and physiology, is very well thought out and serves a purpose. Much like our own whales, they're shown to be highly intelligent, and the crests used for sonar are a creative touch. Designing an alien species is no small feat. It will be easy to take the lazy way out and just have them look like slight variations of aquatic life from Earth. But Cameron's team went all the way and obviously put a lot of thought in the designs. This also goes for the creatures who don't necessarily play a large part in the story and are only seen in glimpses. The human side of the story also has some minor developments. The more advanced technology is a sign that much time has passed since their last encounter with Sully's forces. While there were many casualties in the first Avatar, they mostly played in the background and, with the exception of Tsute, were characters we never really got to know. This is completely different in the sequel. We're introduced to a tulkun and her calf who are close to Ronal, only for them to be killed later. Seeing their lifeless bodies floating in the water as Ronal mourns her spirit sister is a haunting scene to watch. There's another casualty in the film later on, one that I absolutely did not see coming and was shocked that they went there. The music. Simon Franklin does an excellent job of capturing the atmosphere with his compositions. The music for the Metkayina's territory features ethereal vocals, echoing strings that are usually associated with anything aquatic, and percussion is added only when the action demands it. One of my favorite pieces from the score is A New Star, the song that plays when the humans return to Pandora. As humans cause immense damage to the environment by simply landing their ships, the music helps hammer home the fact that they're indifferent towards the damage they cause to Pandora, somewhat petty in their revenge, and signify a serious threat to the entire civilization. Some of the music from the original film is reused, both subtle and not so subtle, but this only emphasizes the fact that we're dealing with a continuation of said story, not something that is meant to feel unfamiliar. The late James Horner set the bar quite high with his work on the last Avatar film, but it's obvious the series' music is in capable hands with Franklin at the helm. The bad. While Way of Water is incredibly beautiful, it's far from perfect. You may have heard a common criticism echoed online, namely the film's lengthy runtime. At 3 hours and 12 minutes, it demands a lot of viewers. Of this criticism, Cameron said, "I don't want anybody whining about the length when they sit and binge watch television for 8 hours. I've watched my kids sit and do 5 one-hour episodes in a row. Here's the big social paradigm shift that has to happen. It's okay to get up and go pee." As an avid fan of movies, no, James, I'm afraid it's not. You see, we can pause those 1-hour episodes we watch on streaming platforms. If we go to the bathroom during a 3-hour film, we risk the possibility of missing something. This wouldn't be that big of a problem in itself, however. Avengers Endgame is 3 hours long and not only highly rewatchable, but many viewers like myself timed our liquid intake and eventual output so that we wouldn't need to go until the credits. But Endgame also had something Way of Water lacks: cohesion. The lengthy runtime is necessary for the numerous plot threads, but therein lies what is in my opinion the film's biggest problem: there's too much going on at once. The film starts by focusing on the Sully family evading troops from Earth, but then it diverges into many more plotlines. There's Kiri and her mysterious connection to Awa, Loak's relationship with Payakan, an outcast whale with a story of his own. There's the hunting of his species, the tulkun, for a secretion that apparently halts human aging. Quaritch and his troops attempting to learn more of Navi culture in order to successfully infiltrate the tribes. There's a human's more forceful approach towards local tribes because the Earth is dying, and Pandora would make a suitable new home. It's just too much. Remember unobtainium from the first film, the very reason Earthlings were on Pandora to begin with? Never mentioned again. The ability to halt aging, something that would change the course of mankind as we know it? Never mentioned again. Earth dying and humanity needing a new home? Never mentioned again. Team Quaritch going in undercover? Never mentioned again. This also means that there are many exposition dumps since there's not enough time to spend on all these individual threads. A lot of these plot lines could have been reserved for another installment in the franchise. It would have been interesting to meet the tulkun, showing us more of their relationship with the Metkayina and having Ronal's spirit tulkun be killed in the next film. While her death did have an emotional impact, it would have been so much more powerful if we the viewers had been given a chance to form a connection to her and her calf ourselves. This movie could also have someone speak of Payakan and his exile, while not having him appear until the next film. This way, when he does meet up with Loak after we've been told about him, it's left ambiguous as to whether or not Payakan is the killer he's made out to be. His story also deserved a bit more runtime to make a bigger splash. All these underdeveloped or otherwise abandoned ideas at some point do make it feel like a rather long film. Speaking of underdeveloped, Spider isn't fully fleshed out. Why does he help out the humans the way he does? Teaching them more of the language and how to ride Ikran? He wasn't exactly being held at gunpoint, and they didn't have any other hostages to threaten him with. Don't get me wrong, by the time he saves Quaritch from drowning, they spend enough time together to form some sort of bond. It's just that the initiation of that bond didn't have a convincing starting off point. Cameron meticulously planned every detail of the film's presentation. For instance, I never paid attention to the fact that the hybrids have different hands than true Na'vi. But there is such a thing as too much detail. Quaritch and several members of his gung-ho Na'vi hybrid squad sport tattoos. In Quaritch's case, a tattoo his former self shared. It just makes me wonder, why bother going through the trouble of getting these bodies tattoos? A process that not only seems pointless, but will inevitably cost time, especially since this is a mission that needs to be carried out ASAP. Inconsistent frame rate. While the 48 FPS frame rate works wonders for the visuals, there are times when it slows down to 24, mostly during the more quiet scenes. I initially assumed this was a technical issue on the side of theaters. After all, when Unexpected Journey was released, many theaters simply played it at 24 FPS because they didn't have the equipment for 48. However, it turned out that this was intentional. Cameron chose to have some scenes in standard 24 FPS because he wanted to avoid viewers getting a sense of the uncanny valley as a result of constant 40 FPS rate. A little consistency across the board would have been nice though. While the score is highly immersive, the closing song performed by The Weeknd actually took me out of the whole experience. It's the same issue as Rihanna's closing song from Wakanda Forever. It feels out of place in the film. The Weeknd is an extraordinarily talented artist, but much like Rihanna, someone I associate with more superficial aspects of life, rather than an emotional piece that's supposed to evoke a proper culmination of the masterpiece I just witnessed. Verdict. Avatar: The Way of Water, or The Wow for short, and it certainly has that wow factor, is a spectacular film experience like no other and a landmark achievement in the field of filmmaking. Much like its predecessor, it will stand the test of time and be spoken of for years to come. Unfortunately, also like its predecessor, the story takes a bit of a back seat to the visuals, but it's not to the extent that it ruins the experience and still carries a message. The first film was a plea to save our forests. The sequel is a plea to save our oceans. I'll award The Way of Water 4.5 out of 5 Thunderbolts. It's quite a gap between the original Avatar and this film, with new technology needing to be developed, the cast needing time to learn new skills to perform the necessary scenes, and of course, the many delays caused by COVID-19. It took a while to get here, but as Zoe Saldana put it,
and we're finally here. I know that for the fans it was more like 13 years. Good things are always worth the wait. Jim has been known for taking his time because he has that much respect and that much love for his followers, for his fans.